The word Huskarl is derived from Huskarl, which is an Old Norse term that literally means houseman or peasant, and the Anglo-Saxon chronicles mentioned hired man as a term for all paid warriors, and thus is applied also to the Huskarls, as they were freemen. Not to be confused with thralls, who were slaves or serfs, and thus the Icelandic laws also called them lone runners or unbound men. Both of these terms emphasize the voluntary nature of their service. With time, the term Huskarls came to refer to a specific type of retainer in the service of a lord. Germanic tribes, including the Goths who overran the Western Roman Empire, did maintain personal retinues of warriors who served their chiefs in return for a share of plunder or the land. In the Visigothic kingdom, the equivalent rank was Gardingo, a royal bodyguard who eventually even became part of the nobility. However, the term Huskarl seems to apply more to Scandinavian peoples of later centuries, with Huskarls and similar variants being recorded as serving in Denmark, Norway and England around the 9th and all the way up to the 12th centuries AD. As one can assume, with the unit being trained from the castle in the game, Huskarls were not confined to the low ranks of the battlefields, and many could be found with royal households being known for their administrative duties in peace times as the king's representatives, and by the end of the 11th century in England, there may have been as many as 3,000 Englishmen who were royal housecarls. This was because the Huskarls gradually developed into the household unit for the nobility and the monarchy itself, with a notable example of Harold Godwinson's Huskarls, who had a crucial role in the backbone of Harold's army at Hastings in 1066. Now, the Goths and the Huskarls in AoE2 are synonymous with the Flood, known as the Goth spam. I have always loved the AoE2 cutscenes, and some of them are simply works of art. So I'm excited to announce the Age of History store, set up to celebrate some of the very best artworks from the campaigns, so you get to appreciate them wherever you are. So go on, click the link below or follow the QR code on screen and grab your Age of Histories merch, which by doing so you'll be directly supporting me in creating more amazing content for you. The devs probably took the idea of the Goth spam from the chronicles of the late Roman Empire that described vast hordes of Goths beating away at the empire's borders over and over again. However, in reality, many of the people involved in these floods of barbarian hordes were not the warriors themselves, but actually their own family members and wider communities, as they travelled with the army itself, since the Goths often migrated as nomads, with vast numbers of women and children and other non-combatants, and not just the fighting men. Although the concept of the Huskarl being an elite heavy infantry unit seems to have been a later concept than the 5th century Goths, that does not mean that such heavy infantry wielding swords and shields were not the mainstay of the Gothic elite infantry class. The classic game depiction of the Gothic Huskarls is certainly that of a wealthy heavy infantryman, as only they could afford such arms and armour. Gothic heavy infantry typically fought in dense wedges or shield walls, a tactic also adopted by the late Roman army when fighting the Goths. They provided a solid line of battle, working in concert with supporting light infantry and other heavy cavalry as well. So proficient were these barbarian soldiers that they were often integrated into the late Roman armies as foederati, or allies, who were essentially mercenaries fighting for Rome or Constantinople until climate change and Attila the Hun forced their people into conflict with them instead.